Okay. Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining this session with Benjamin Davies, the Professor Emeritus, and who just might be my cousin. I don't know for now.
Yes.
We'll find that out after the session. Yes. He's going to talk to us about ChatGPT. Yeah, we hear a lot about that, but thankfully we'll be hearing it from the expert. So we'll know how it applies to online dispute resolution. If you are joining us for the first time, we are ODR Africa Network. It's a non-for-profit academic and social platform for dispute resolvers. And one of our main, in fact, our main primary objective is to promote the use of information and communication technology to assist mechanisms that resolve disputes or even prevent disputes. Today, we're lucky to have Benjamin and in good spirit because we were to have him last month, but I think he just had to catch a breath. He had too much on his plate, and thankfully he's with us now. And let's just say he's a professor emeritus. I've looked through the profile. I think if we're going to read everything that Benjamin has done, I think we will take too much time on what we really want to learn from him. So, Benjamin, over to you. Please teach us about ChatGPT and how it relates to ODR.
Well, thank you very much, Juan. And thank you to ODR Africa for being kind to reschedule so that we could have this conversation today. I had to reschedule because after 3 1/3 years, the old COVID got me, okay? I had been dodging that bullet very carefully for 3.5 years. And I went to the 50th reunion of my high school, and lo and behold, we became a super spreader event, and a number of us got it. But I'm all vaccinated, and I did the Paxlovid they talk about. Fortunately, it was a very mild case. But anybody here who is around 65 and looks at that, it look like having a target on your back. Oh yeah, Alberto, see you, man. That I just thought, well, we need to wait. We need to wait. Hey, more Niki. So I'm happy to talk to you today about ChatGPT. The way that I hope that you all understand it is a really simple way, which is this is the newest technology that people are talking about. And so I like to talk about it in terms that were first brought to my attention by one of the, I don't know if you remember this case called the Central Park Five, where these 5 young men were convicted and then exonerated of a horrible crime in New York. And one of them went on to become a PhD. And I saw him speak, and he mentioned looking at technology as also worrying about technology. And so I look at ChatGPT as like, this is the newest technology. And then the questions that faces all of us in its use is, to what extent is it technology? And to not be too enamored of this as the new thing. New thing is always something that they talk about in Silicon Valley, and this as the killer app, the killer application that is going to change the world and destabilize things. So here's kind of a couple of first thoughts to help you worry about it. I don't know if you know this case. It just recently happened where a lawyer filed a brief in a court in the United States. And it was a beautiful brief. And it had citations to all kinds of cases that were relevant on the legal rules that should be applied. But when people went in and actually looked, it turned out that the cases he was citing to did not exist. And the reason the cases were being cited to by him was that he used ChatGPT as a tool to help in writing his brief. Now, but obviously he did not check the actual citations to see if they were real or not. Now, when I was in law school a million years ago, one of the things they taught us was something called shepherdizing, which was to look up the history of each case to see what happened after with the case, whether it was good law still or not. And now the technology has moved forward enough that it's really quite simple to do as compared to back in what I like to call the horse and buggy days when I was doing it, where you can just put it into a computer and check and get results presented. He had not even done that. And so now he's confronted with some kind of question before the judge with regards to sanctions, because he relied on ChatGPT to help him without doing the normal work of checking what was coming out to see if it was good or garbage. Now, everyone here who works in the area of technology will know about the idea of garbage in, garbage out. And one of the things that is magnificent about ChatGPT is that some people find it is helpful. Like you could ask a question on, like on anything. I'll take one that says, who was Gowon during the Nigerian Civil War? You can ask ChatGPT that, and it'll go across the internet and found everything about Gowon. And you could read that and you think that you would know what's going on, but you don't know what ChatGPT looked at. There are different versions that are also being developed. You don't know if what it looked at was just somebody making a comment, or another name that was from back in the day is Ojukwu. Who was Ojukwu? You wouldn't know that, whether what was being given to you was true or not. All you would know, you could even look up Ben Davies. You wouldn't know what it was saying was true or not, because it goes and it looks and gathers the information together and will write something that looks in ordinary language very, very beautiful, very clear, very persuasive. And that is, in a sense, part of its seduction as a technology, is that it will sound authoritative. There is a certain amount of worry that when people are confronted with something that the computer has generated, there's a tendency to give it an authority because it's coming from that, as opposed to having a certain kind of skepticism about what you are looking at. So there are different ways that technologies like this are being implemented right now. One of the ways that I think people find helpful is in helping them to draft a letter, to help them with drafting a letter that is not going to require background research necessarily, but just to sort of formulate the phrases. Like, how do you write a letter complaining about somebody being late to work at your office? ChatGPT, and they generate a letter that is going to be something that you can work with or something. Sometimes there's talk about students when they have to write their papers. We'll ask ChatGPT and it'll generate something. And then they can sort of use that as a first draft. There's even talk about that being implemented inside of law firms for helping with generating the first kinds of letters or briefs and things like that. And again, these things may depending on how the technology evolves, become very, very, very persuasive. But always there is the question that I have, or many of us have, is whether they are accurate in ways that you really want as the human looking at this to make sure that they are there. And I'm a person who is who thinks these technological developments are wonderful and interesting, but I also have in my mind the concern that to the extent that these are developed, the people who are developing them, what are they trying to do? They want to sell their technology. So they're looking for a market, and they want to do stuff that will make the market accept them. So then the question is, who is the market for what you're trying to sell with these technologies? And then if the technology does not give the kinds of answers that the market likes, so the result will be that your product may not be considered acceptable. So then you adjust your product so that it generates the kinds of answers that the market likes, and you have success. And these are really difficult questions with regards to the use of these kinds of technologies, you know? For example, one idea that has been developed has been to use this technology, for example, in courts. There were actually some experiments done where, as an option, judges could look at what the results were for an analysis of a particular defendant to generate it through use of AI to help the judge in deciding on what the sentence for the person was. And so the interesting question became those judges that opted to use the technology answer as opposed to those judges who decided not to. And lo and behold, there was some evidence that the judges who did decide to use the technology tended to give tougher sentences than the judges who didn't. And one of the things is that, well, what is the data, the background data upon which is built this evaluation of this person? And that background data, which might on its face look to be neutral, like where they lived, how much people make in terms of income in that particular area, what are the crime rates in that area, those kinds of things, whatever. The question that comes up is, of course, why are those the data? What are the social forces that led to that data being that way, so that the ostensibly neutral computer-generated commentary about the likelihood of this person repeating was in fact accurate about this individual and what they were doing? So that's, part of this duality I like to talk about between technology and tricknology is that you need to embrace what you can of the technology, but also be a little bit hesitant about it. I can give you some concrete examples of how these things evolve. All of us know domain names that are used for each of wherever we are, every site on the web. And there were disputes, intellectual property disputes in the 90s, where somebody would buy the domain name Coca-Cola.com. Yeah, look at me, I've got Coca-Cola.com. Or maybe if I go for Nigeria, I think, is Star Beer still in Nigeria? Is Star Beer still in Nigeria? So buy starbeer.com. Now, Star Beer or Coca-Cola now want to put up their own website, but it's owned by somebody. And so then it's kind of like real estate, they would then sell the right to the domain name to Coca-Cola or Star Beer and make a lot of money. You could buy the name for $35 and then you could sell it for what was less than the cost of bringing a lawsuit against you. So $5,000, you paid 35 and you get back 5,000. That's a good way to get rich, okay? Doing this, and people were very good at doing this, and there was a lot of upset about it. So there was a system put in place called the Domain Name Dispute Resolution System, by where every time you register a domain name, you agree that if there's a dispute about your registration, you agree to this system being used for resolving the disputes. And originally, I think there were maybe 4 different entities, providers, that were to provide the domain name judges, we'll call them, or arbitrators, to decide these cases under a certain set of rules that were there. Well, all of that looks very neutral, right? Well, then studies started to be done of the cases, and lo and behold, it found out that the judges who tend to decide in favor of the one who complains, who are under the list of certain providers, were getting enormous numbers of cases, while the judges who maybe decided against the complainant were getting fewer cases, and even the providers that had them were getting fewer cases, because you could choose which provider you would use. So the complainants were going to the providers that tended to have judges that would tend to decide in favor of them. So you would say, well, this is a perfectly neutral system in terms of technology, but there's a kind of trick to it, right? Where if you choose the provider, you're kind of choosing the likely outcome. And that raised serious issues about the system. Now, has that disappeared? No, it's been around. It's been doing thousands of cases now, and that's the way it works. But this dilemma of how you make sure the system is neutral is something that comes into play. So let's talk in terms of dispute resolution, mediators, arbitrators being named. You hear a name of somebody that you're thinking about looking at to be the mediator, or you do looking about them be your co-arbitrator. You go on and you say, who is Juan Adenuga on ChatGPT? ChatGPT sends you back a whole bunch of information about this person that they found on the internet. Is that true? Are you trying to do your analysis as competently, but as also as cheaply as possible? So you say, well, I can use this device, but is it true? There have been some cases that have happened recently. I know of a case, I think it was down in Atlanta, where all kinds of things were said about a person that were completely false, but that was what generated by ChatGPT. Now, there is the system of like making sure that people provide, a resume of all the things that are on there. So we say, well, at least, you could look at the resume. But just like I talk about ChatGPT, there is the question of, is the person inflating their resume? How do you check the things that are on their resume to see if there is, and how much time do you have to do that? And if you are a provider, an ODR provider, how much time do you have to check each potential person that you're thinking about putting on your list as mediator or arbitrator? And so and so. Now, there are those who fear that this technology will cause enormous changes in so many parts of society as ChatGPT. For example, there was a company where workers were trying to unionize. So the company fired all the workers and installed ChatGPT to replace them. So all these people all of a sudden who had, maybe modest paying jobs had it eliminated because the people who make ChatGPT say to them, to their companies, we can do it better, cheaper, and just buy our system. That is obviously very destabilizing for swaths of the population. And one of the things that I think that if you think of yourself as a lawyer or dispute resolution provider or dispute resolution person, you have to have part of your personal setting to be open to these technological developments. One of the fun things that I saw along the way was I was leading a team that I volunteered for to put in place the first case management electronic system at the International Chamber of Commerce Court of Arbitration back in 1989, 1993, ancient history. Some of you may not have even been born then, okay? Give me 2 seconds. I have a cat wants to walk out. Just a second, I'll be right back. There you go. So what the cat said, I wanted to go out the door. Okay. So one of the, so back in that time, what did I see? I saw that the willingness or openness to using technology was not related to age. I found that many times the younger people were so intent on just mastering what they needed to do that the idea of having to master what they needed to do and now work in a new technology environment was scary for them. So they hesitated to adopt the technologies and use it. And I found that there were older people, some of them who, set in their ways and didn't want to change anything, but other ones who understood what was going on in the particular type of work that was involved with running international arbitrations. They understood the principles, they understood the practice. And so they were more amenable to adopting the new technologies to what we were doing, because it was something that would facilitate what they were trying to do. And so what I encourage in you is 2 things. One is that you are, those of you who are, I'd say, under 35, let's see, that would take us back to, say 33, would take us back to 1990, maybe 1993. So under 30, you are what we call digital natives. You have only lived in a world where there was this digital reality that's part of your life. I don't know when you got your first cell phone, but even the idea of a cell phone was not a concept when I was coming up and was 30 years old. So you are used to maybe going and looking up things on technology, on computers, on iPads, on iPhones, on what, that, this. It's part of what you deal with on an everyday level. Maybe now you go to apply for a job and you don't write a letter to a company saying, hello, this law firm, I'm very interested in doing something with you. You're automatically sent to some kind of website where it's called Indeed or whatever, and you have to fill out their form, their structure as to what you're supposed to do. And then you see if you move on to the process inside the firm. You may not even meet with people. You'll do Zoom meetings like we're doing now, where we have just these little heads talking to each other about working on that. And if you're in the firm and you're collaborating with others, this is what it may look like. You're sitting wherever you are, collaborating with these other people, That's the world you live in, and a world that you've become comfortable with because you've grown up as a digital native. Those of us who are a little older than that, we are more like digital immigrants, right? Where we have had to adapt to this new environment. We have had to learn new dance steps, so to speak, because this is something that has confronted us. And the question has been, do we embrace it and learn or not? One of the things I love about ODR Africa is that you have all these people coming together who are willing to embrace it and find out how it can help with dispute resolution, and not only in Africa, but also around the world. Because as the efforts that ODR Africa are trying to do to build the technological space for the access to and use of technology go forward, brilliant ideas have been come up with and will continue to come up with from that experience of the people who are involved with ODR Africa. And those experiences, just like millions of years ago, I guess it was, when humankind came out of Africa and went all over the world, those ideas can be shared with the world too, and help to change the rest of the world and how they go about doing these types of dispute resolution with regards to mediation and technology, and arbitration and mediation and technology. So those are a few ideas maybe to start us off, if you like, that I would throw out to you. If I was to summarize, I would start out by just saying yes to technology, but also be aware of the technology. Be open to it, learn how to use it, to embrace, to develop it, and understand that it is just in fact, there is no artificial intelligence. There is only human intelligence assisted by technology. And so if you can keep that human part at the center of your thought about this, I think it helps you to avoid somehow thinking of yourself as being in front of some kind of artificial intelligence that is authoritative. There's always a human in the background, you know. I'll finish with one example that's many of you may know. It goes back to photography, and it's actually even true with the cameras on your cell phones. But back when Kodak first developed its film, they had to determine how the colors would be processed. And what they did is they set the tones based on a particular person who was I forgot her name now, but it was a white woman. And so the tones were to make her look natural. But at that time, when you were, and I can remember this from when I was a kid, when you took a picture of black people looked very black, blacker than they were in real life, because the tones had been set to a certain color. The background rule was to a certain color. And so part of the effort over time with Kodak was recognizing, because they were different markets, that they had to adjust their technology. Well, trust me, those cell phone cameras that you have in your cell phone, the companies that create those cameras have had to address that issue also. The companies that create facial recognition technology have had to do those kinds of adjustments too, because again, the background technological vision of what is to be looked for had to be adjusted from what was the initial vision of the people designing to take into account the complexity of humankind. So that's why I talk about the technology side and the technology side. so that you have this idea that, well, I just have to understand there's human intelligence operating here with the assistance of technology. And I have to see how that technology helps, how that technology doesn't help, what are its limits. So that would where I would start. I'd welcome any questions or comments that others have that are here.
Thanks for keeping it concise. Does anybody have any question? Thankfully, we have a bit of a time to ask questions.
Yeah, I guess I'll make some comments. These discussions have been going on for a long time. You know, the first discussions about artificial intelligence were around 1948 when Isaac Asimov wrote Runaround, which gave us the 3 laws of robotics. You know, in normal consumer media stuff, we've been seeing movies about robots for decades now. We still haven't come to grips with ethics around AI. Part of that is because it keeps changing. I would just add to Benjamin's discussion that intelligence is not just about what a system can provide in terms of answers, but also if it can tell you why something is impossible based on natural laws. And the current systems are not capable of that because they don't have an understanding of laws of physics, laws of psychology, deep understanding of mathematics. And so there are limitations in terms of what to expect. But I would also say that if you use AI like we've used it to either assist or augment skills of a mediator, then I think we can use it to our advantage. And so I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. Please, Benjamin, do you want to respond to that before I add more?
Sure. And you know, I agree with Robert 100%, because I remember reading at some point, again, I'm not sure this is the complete answer or anything, but that, you know, one of the fatal flaws of some of the initial thinking with regards to the use of technology, and even was to say that the brain operates like a computer, that the computer operates like your brain, okay? And it was to assimilate the brain to being like what a computer does. And it was one of the fundamental errors in the 50s for people to make that assimilation in the way that they thought about the construct of what computers were doing and what's going on with this technology. You know, I have a friend who has a wonderful t-shirt that I made the t-shirts up because he said it. And it's called, the t-shirt says, "Confuse the algorithms," okay? And the idea is that these algorithms are out there trying to identify who you are and all this stuff or whatever. And part of his pleasure in life was when he would be sent things for things that had no interest to him at all, which meant that the algorithms were confused about who he was as a human, okay? And so I think that, you know, recognizing that particular amazing thing that is the creativity of an Isaac Asimov, the creativity of Philip Dick, of Wole Soyinka. It's just they take different people from technologies, I mean, from literature, that these kinds of technologies are not able to really comprehend. Now, can they do computations? Can they do amazing sorting exercises? to provide information? Absolutely. For example, if you're trying to come up with solutions to some dispute as a mediator, you might be able to put in some information about the type of dispute and to have generated from that different options that you might not think of yourself as to how that dispute could be resolved. This is a process that's been going on for a while. If you remember eBay or PayPal, they had dispute resolution mechanisms for millions of cases. And eBay, you could bring in your complaint, and they could look back through their cases and come up with, these are the different kinds of resolutions that were done in those cases. And that could be assisting to people to help them understand, using technology without a mediator, how to resolve the type of dispute that was there. Usually it's a dispute about the thing that was sent was defective, or I didn't get paid, these kind of things. I mean, there are these mechanisms, escrow accounts, all these kind of things that are put in place to help use technology to resolve and avoid disputes. Those kind of things may be in certain kind of limited spaces, maybe another way to go.
Salma asked a question, and then the question tallies with what I wanted to speak about.
Yes.
That at the end of the day, by the time we come to everyday interaction, we know that people use ChatGPT and other AI as systems for not too noble things. But you're talking about those that use them for very good things, particularly to resolve disputes, specifically to resolve in this matter. And I am also aware that Bob has actually been doing a lot of wonderful things with his next level mediation software. And yes, if I'm to read out what Salma said, thanks for the presentation. I would like to ask about the platform used for ODR. How users can be sure that these new tools can provide efficient answers to the expectations without using AI 100%. Technology can't replace humans with regards to multicultural differences, especially in mediation cases. Thanks. Yes, I'm aware that there's something in Next Level that Next Level just answers this question, because it helps you to identify, using AI, objectives of parties and prioritize their desires, so that you can now easier identify what is important to you or to the party and what is not. And from what we learned when robots spoke, it's not supposed to replace, it's not supposed to decide for you. It just helps you understand yourself better and for parties to understand each other better, so they can make informed choices or choose among the best options that they have. So for those working to improve or to really help the world find peace, or to make justice easier, particularly in the areas of mediation, even in litigation of negotiation of any aspect, artificial intelligence can be put to real good use. And I'm glad that you're warning us that don't think that just by asking some questions, you're getting exactly what it needs to be. Yeah, because you never said it will replace human intelligence. No. You're just explaining to us that it's going to search through the internet and well, process information so fast, it can put it to you right there, according to what it got from the internet. This is who Ojukwu is. This is who Gawan is, for instance. Or this is who any African leader is. Well, it's all from information available in the internet. But, you know, I'm glad that we're learning this from you, warning us, and I'm glad that we have gone through what Robert Bergman did with Next Level to tell us. It just helps you with analysis, and then it helps you understand yourself. The decision is still yours. The choice is still yours at the end of the day. So I hope Salma is satisfied. With,
I would like to speak to Selma, okay?
Thank you. Thank you.
Selma, first of all, I am a Tunisian. I am a Tunisian, Salma Benayed, because from 1957 to 1961, I lived in La Marsa.
Oh, La Marsa, yes.
Yes, I lived there. I went, I don't even know if it's still there, but there was, I went to Maternelle at, it was called Saint Joseph. It was there in La Marsa. And, you know, it was during the Algerian War. So we were very aware of the Algerian War being next door.
You speak French, so.
Oui, je parle français. J'habitais Paris pendant 17 ans. Yes, I speak French too. But back then, when my sister and I, we were upset with our parents, we would speak Arabic to each other, okay? This is back when I was 2 to 6 years old.
Marhaba. Marhaba.
So I don't have very much Arabic left, I try to tell you. But what? But you know, there are different people like Sami Huerbi and Sana Belaid, or people that I've met and worked with along the way. And I just have this warm feeling, and I'm hoping that one day I could go back to Tunisia to see the house, if it still exists, where I grew up in those times. But I want to, and second the comments that were made by Juan, because the capacity of the potential technologies to show how you can optimize the results for a settlement in ways that we don't think of initially ourselves, but by having structured analysis of what we want and what our desires, and then seeing where you can optimize without hurting the other side, is something that is important as a possible way to help in settling disputes. Okay, so
can we listen to Natalie, please? I think Natalie wants to ask you a question.
Yes, Natalie, please.
Hello Ben.
Salut, ça va?
Ça va et toi?
Oui, ça va.
Thank you so much for today. It's wonderful. I'm trying to switch on my camera, but my computer is proving to be not in a cooperating mood.
Okay.
Ben, thank you so much for this wonderful seminar as usual. A question in relation to ChatGPT. Let's be controversial. Do you think there is an opportunity for ChatGPT to replace a mediator or an arbitrator? And if so, is it desirable?
Okay. My quick answer, maybe that's my bias, okay, and you'll excuse me, but my quick answer is no.
No.
Because there's two levels, I think, that come to my mind. One is the parameters of the dispute that is there. If it is the kind of relatively straightforward, there are really only 2 or 3 or 4 potential answers to what could happen there, like some of those cases they had on eBay with, you know, where it's really, there's not a lot that can be the decision, right? Equity is not really part of it. I'm not even saying law is. It's just that there are like 3 or 4 standard responses. Maybe something like ChatGPT could assist in that area. The way I would describe it is like there's a commercial on TV here in the United States where there's a lady who is in a wheelchair and she has a dog and she's living in a place with lots of snow and she's so sick of that and the dog is sick of it. So she goes to one of these travel websites and says, where can I go on vacation with my dog? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, something like ChatGPT is what she's writing to, and they can do the research on the internet as to what are the hotels in what countries that accept somebody in a wheelchair with a dog. Okay.
Yep.
That to me is wonderful. You know, that is as opposed to me kind of filtering criteria on some website and all that to find, you know, those kinds of quote unquote, it's not really a dispute, but it's a helpful assistance to what you want to do. Yes. Second, so first you have sort of the narrow parameter type dispute, potentially. That is sort of augmented search, maybe. Now, say it comes back with a hotel, we'll call it the Hotel Revolution. And it's located in, let's pick some, I was talking about La Marsa, Tunisia, right? Well, does the Hotel Revolution exist in La Marsa, Tunisia? Or is it just something that the technology made up from going around the internet? You know, that's the next level that you would have to go to actually see if this place existed. I'm not saying it didn't exist, but you can't be sure it does exist. That's the dilemma. When you move to more, and I think you move to more complicated disputes fairly rapidly. That's my concern. I mean, I remember people used to talk back in the day about small claims. Small claims, you can have a simple system for people. And, you know, the comment was, well, what's a small claim? You know, I mean, maybe it's $5,000, right? Or 5,000 Naira, okay? But that can be a big claim for somebody, okay?
Of course, yeah.
You know, and their life may depend in their vision of their future on that, you know. So all of the complications you associate with the, I don't know, the $100 million claim are actually there in that little claim for only $5,000 or 5,000 euros, right? So I think you can get quickly to more complicated things. And then the question is really, can that be done with the technology? I'm not saying it can't be done at some point in the future, but I'm just saying that from what you see at this point, it's human assisted, it's human intelligence assisted by technology. Now, any of you here see the Terminator movies, okay, with Skynet? Anybody?
Exactly,
okay?
yes, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So,
okay.
Natalie, it looks like ChatGPT is a good friend, not...
I agree. I would tend to agree with that. It's a good friend, good tool, but is it desirable?
Benjamin wonders that it can be, because if I were to ask ChatGPT, where is Benjamin's family originally from? Now, he says he's from Salma's place. And earlier, he convinced me that he was from Nigeria. Now, which one do I? So,
Great.
So,
because
which is which?
Well, which, you know?
So at the end of the day, there's still a subjective part to ChatGPT. I would rather believe that he's from Nigeria. Salma would rather believe that he's from Tunisia. At the end of the day, as long as we are happy.
Right. Well, you know, it's just like I like to say to people, I was saying to Juan before we started.
All good things starts from Tunisia.
All good things start from Tunisia. There we go. All right. You know, I want to tell you, Salma, I'm more Tunisian than you because my dad and mom met Bourguiba back in the day. Okay. I mean, really, we go back, sister. We go back. I'm just joking with you. But the thing I wanted to say is that just look at me. All right. You all look at me and you say, okay, here's another American, right? You know, here's another African American, right? You know, and so, But then I was saying to people beforehand that my parents were both from the United States, were stationed in Liberia when I was born. So I was actually born in Africa. So I'm like, and then the 2 years there, and then the 4 years in Tunisia before I came back to the States, or came to the States, because I was an African before I became an American again, living in the United States, right? You know? So then it's like, is this guy just another African American, or is this guy really just an American African, right? You know what I mean? It's like the dualities. Can ChatGPT capture that? I don't think so. The other thing that Juan is referring to is we went back through the ancestors, and I have an ancestor whose name's Delicia back in 1800, and my cousin found her, did DNA studies and all that, and found out that 49% of his DNA came from the area of Africa from Nigeria. So like the kingdoms of Benin and Dahomey. So am I a Nigerian too? Can ChatGPT capture any of this? No. But can we as humans capture any of this? Yes, because we understand things like the role of ancestors, the role of history, all these things that are kind of tied to those kind of ideas of ethics and all that, that are really very difficult for the technology to capture. Why? Because it's very hard to do, to try to get ethics in there. It's not impossible, but that's where I think of the role of the human looking at this technology generated assistance and saying, oh, you know, this might work here, but this one would be really horrific if we went down this path or that path, because we don't understand. And that's actually a worry that's there with some people, is that because there's no ethical guidance or framework, that with the complexity of the technology, you may end up with situations like they're trying for some kind of fighter. They tried to have an autonomous fighter, and with them some kind of use of AI and all this, and in their test, the rocket was shot back at the ship that had sent it because it has no sense of enemy and friend. It has a sense of who's causing me problems. And then if I get rid of the one who shot it, I don't have a problem anymore. You know, that doesn't work. It just doesn't work.
Well,
so it's fun.
Thank you so much. We have about 3 minutes to go, and I can see, we can all see that the thing that separates human being from machine is it probably the ability to feel, and emotions are things that machines cannot relate to. But then machines have found a way to present us with information which we can use to manage our emotions and get things done. I guess that's why a machine can never be a mediator. And so far, Bob, is there something else you might want to tell us from what you heard so far today? We have just about 2 minutes. We like to keep to time so that people who are so busy that find time to spend with us can always get off on time to their next assignment.
No, I would just add that these discussions have been going on for a long time. I remember when I left MIT in 1968. Okay, I'm going to be 76. So as far as old people using technology, I'm a good example. So, but, you know, these discussions have been going on for a long time. I had my first email account in 1970 on a teletype machine. So the technology will change over time. The question is, how do you put it in the right perspective? And I know the way we've implemented the ODR and next level mediation is to focus on assistance and augmenting skills of the mediator. The clients never see anything unless the mediator okays it. And so you don't have to worry about hallucinations or things getting out of control. It's still up to the mediator. And the work on ethics and AI is continuing. We've implemented the system in a way that's kind of aligned with the work at Oxford University in ethics and AI. And so, and making sure that the standards that have been proposed for online dispute resolution and the work being done in AI ethics are compatible and don't overstep what we would consider safe boundaries or responsible AI. And so
Yeah.
it just takes a lot of work to understand what's going on. That's all. So.
Yeah, if I could just add also one closing point, which is that I know that there are these efforts that are going forward to try to do something similar to the International Standards Organization for this area, so that when you are using whatever technology that you're using, it'll say something like ISO 6000, and that is generally giving you some kind of confidence about the kind of approach that is being taken with that technology. Somebody earlier talked about, what about the bad actors? You're never going to get rid of the bad actors, all right? There are always bad actors out there. You know, we all get these messages saying that I bought something from Norton and I have to buy, give information. But and I have nothing against Norton, but these are bad actors trying to get my data, right? But the point is that maybe a standards approach can work internationally because of the difficulties of having a common language on the law side in terms of state by state regulation. And that's, I think, part of the debate that is going forward right now in these efforts to come up with consensus standards so that people can have confidence in where the technology goes. But I would encourage everyone just to enjoy whatever they're doing. Don't be saddened by all this, but ride the wave. Ride the wave. Don't get taken over by the wave.
Well, thank you so much. I shouldn't. I think we'll use some of our veterans to say thank you to you. We'll ask Mireille to help us thank Benjamin, because I'm not sure I can express it the way he deserves to be thanked for taking this time to spend with us, despite the fact that he's gone through a lot, but at least he wants to help us out. So, Mireille, you've been quiet and you usually are not. We'd like to hear your voice. Oh, please.
Usually
Please
I'm not
say
quiet.
thank
This is
you.
what you mean. Thank you, Juan. Thank you, Morenike, Nathalie, Ben. I'm so sorry. I'm connecting from outside home. So I did not succeed. I only succeeded to connect 10 minutes ago. But I hope really to catch up with the recording, because I hated myself to miss Ben's presentation. I had seen Bob's presentation, but I wanted to hear also the other voice about ChatGPT. So I hope to catch up. Ben is absolutely indescriptible, indescriptible, as we say in French. He is just a pioneer and an amazing person. It's thanks to him that I came to technology, actually, because one day he said, why don't you join me in the team building the case management system for the ICC? And that's where it all started. I had no idea about where I was going to go. And then thanks to him, then I had also built the platform for the ICC to give access to arbitration cases to the lawyers and the arbitrators. So everything happening in my life in technology is always thanks to Ben. And he's just an amazing person, not only on the technical side, but also on the human side. He's been a pioneer in everything, in diversity, in pushing people forward, and through, we say in French, un cœur sur la main, a heart on the hand, which means that he puts his heart first in front before his mind. So a great person, and I'm so sorry, Ben, to have missed the beginning of the presentation. I'll catch up hopefully, but this is really what technology brings to you when you are not prepared. I had someone help me to configure my phone to be able to access. So I'm not even able to put the camera on. So forgive me, and I still, even if I'm in technology now for the last 25 years, I haven't succeeded to connect with my phone. What a shame. Don't look at me, Ben.
No, it's okay, because I always say that if the technology doesn't work on one of the things, it's my fault. Okay, it's my
Yeah.
fault, because I've had so many times that it's all messed up on me. So it's
Yeah.
all right.
That's correct. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Juan, Morenike,
Much love to you.
Natalie, and all people.
Yes.
Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you,
All right.
Monique, also. Thank
Thank you for
Robert.
joining us.
Thank you, Ben.
As they
Thank
say,
you.
it's
Thank
not over until the fat lady sings, but it just happens that Mary's is not fat. But,
There you go. There you go. Ah.
but that voice is music. So
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
all.
Bye.
Thank you.
All right,
All right.
Ben.
Have a great day.
All right.
everyone.
Thanks so much, Bob, for chipping in.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for being with us.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Catch up again.
All
Bye.
good.
Bye.
Bye.